everybody. I'm Mike with Budget Guns and Gear Reviews, and this is The Right of the People, where we use the first to defend the second every Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. So uncover your keyboards and fire up your fingers. It's time to join the conversation.
Hey everybody, this ain't Friday, but this is Mike with MK Outdoor Journal. Today, we're going to watch a little bit of the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. As much as you guys want to watch, as long as you want to stay around, or as long as I can stay around. We missed a good deal of it. I had other things to do today. Unfortunately, we're not going to get to see the opening statements from the defense. I know I saw some of that earlier today, and I got to tell you, I can't imagine that there's any way possible they can convict this kid just based upon the defense. I mean, I guess that's the defense's job, is to make it seem that way, but it sure looked to me as if every point that I've laid out and every analysis I've done of all the video in this is exactly what the defense is saying. So maybe I got a little something as far as brain cells to rub together. Maybe. Let's see. MK Joe's out there. Calaveras 32 Specials out there. Says, seems that if the court follows the law to the letter, he'll be okay criminally. Might have some civil stuff to deal with due to things he did since. Yeah, good point. Jason Stewart says, good afternoon. Patriot in the Dark says, whoa, wait, you mean I'm getting this at the beginning? Yes, you are. We're not getting the trial at the beginning. Right now, they are at lunch. They have completed some opening statements. I know the defense did. I'm not sure if the prosecution gets to go after lunch or what, but you know, they're still awaiting. Yeah. So I know they're out to lunch. Nobody has come back yet. And this is so far the feed that I have. I'm telling you that the Liberoonies were being loony in the chat. There is a whole lot of communist butthurt in the chats that I've watched on this. Oh, man, it's terrible. Let me go back, see if we can find anything else that is live yet. They're supposed to be back from lunch here directly. Yeah, still nothing. Let me play some of the defense's statements for you, and
individual
we'll see about getting back to it.
Kyle.
Let me go back here.
Him, the fire extinguisher, but does not go with him. And Kyle heads down to car source 3.
So they're
he
talking
doesn't
about
know that Mr.
Rosenbaum
is down there. He's been asked to go down there by Nick Smith. He heads down Sheridan from 60th, walking to Sheridan and 63rd, where the car source is. That's a picture of him from a video leaving the car source at 11:46 p.m. approximately. He has his firearm, and he has, as you can see in his other hand, a fire extinguisher to put out the fires and that are being started down there. This is an aerial photograph that the state had referred to in its opening, and it's actually started to roll.
That
and
chat
you'll see circles in here. There's Kelly Zeminski
I think
in the green lettering, and that's a thermal image. Excuse me. I don't think I get started. It starts very slowly.
apparently he's having technical diddlies just like I often do.
You can see people are labeled Richie McGinnis, and they head down.
Pickle says that by killing a rioter and wounding sex offenders, he's taking away Dem voters. Of course they don't like him.
You see Mr. Rosenbaum come around.
He killed 2 rioters, one of which was a sex
chase
offender.
My client. You'll see the flash of the firearm from Mr. Zabinski.
That's right, MK Joe. Happy E2M.
You'll see the flashes
Every second matters.
First shots. I am not responsible for cutting this video. I don't know how it got the way it did chopped up. That's the FBI up in the plane that took this video. But it's very telling because you'll see this 100 times.
Yeah,
I'm not going to go through it again for you in opening. But you'll see it that the individuals are heading down Sheridan Road, and you'll see this Mr. McGinnis is now over here.
I'm not sure if it's their feed or mine.
Hide right in this location. You'll see Kyle come into this area and pause where Mr. and Mrs. Zeminski are.
Born to be a shooter says the prosecution done a better job of defending Kyle than the defense lawyer did.
You'll see how it's bright. And they go, Kyle runs in this direction, trying to get away from Mr. Rosenbaum. Ladies and gentlemen, Kyle Rittenhouse is under no obligation whatsoever to retreat from Mr. Rosenbaum. He does. He runs away from him because he doesn't want a confrontation. He doesn't want trouble, which makes no sense
the whole time
with what the state says about him hunting or chasing him down. He's trying to get away from the individual.
Exactly.
You'll hear testimony, not just from Kyle Rittenhouse, but Balch, Mr. Balch, about Joseph Rosenbaum stating to Kyle and to Ryan Balch in each other's presence, if I get either of you two alone, I'm going to kill you. Flat out threats to murder. When Mr. Rosenbaum is shot in the car source lot 3, there's been a gunshot behind Kyle. He turns to address Mr. Rosenbaum of his firearm. Mr. Rosenbaum,
if I can get a stream of it, oh yeah, I'll be streaming it for sure.
He continues to run. And you'll
that's
see
real
that
important.
On numerous videos. Closing the distance. Mr. Rosenbaum could have stopped at any time. Mr. Rosenbaum is wearing that maroon shirt on his face as a mask, covering up his identity, because he wants to steal my client's firearm and use it against him to carry out the threat he had made earlier. That isn't just the word of Kyle Rittenhouse made up after the fact.
Let's pause this and see if we can find any new feed of this stuff actually being live. Because, yeah, does Court TV have this? This is Court TV's replay of this that I'm finding here, which is actually probably a better feed than the Yahoo Finance feed, truth be told.
What will end up being, you will see the events of that night unfold in video and still photographs. But ultimately, what this case will come down to, it isn't a whodunit, when did it happen, or anything like that. It is, was Kyle Rittenhouse's actions privileged under the law of self-defense? That is, that the defendant believed that there was an actual or imminent unlawful interference with his person. The defendant believed that the amount of force which he used or threatened to use was necessary to prevent or
correct, Rich. The opening statement's finished about an hour ago. I'm just kind of playing this as background right now.
You as jurors will end up looking at it from the standpoint of a 17-year-old under the circumstances as they existed on August 25th of 2020.
I'm just kind of playing around until they come back. They're supposed to be back anytime.
Mr. Binger makes a big thing out of Kyle Rittenhouse was the only person who shot somebody.
Calaveras says, I'm tempted to bet a large lunch at a drive-up window that if Rittenhouse
Mr.
gets off,
Rittenhouse
cities will burn.
Was the
Oh,
only
yes, they will.
person who was chased by Joseph Rosenbaum that evening. This is Joseph Rosenbaum. And what's important in this photograph is, one, it will allow you to identify him throughout the course of trial. Notice the belt, the baggy, lengthy jeans, and there will be a fair amount of testimony, I'm sure, regarding the maroon shirt.
Not what he was asking for.
He's obviously currently wearing it. Mr. Rosenbaum was at a location, and Mr. Rosenbaum had along with other individuals, started a dumpster on fire. And when somebody put that dumpster that was very close to a gas station out, Mr. Rosenbaum became enraged.
Yeah, he did.
I'm going to go back. Is the sound on? That interaction. And he was upset, and he's yelling that he wants to be shot. And you'll see individuals in the full video, which you'll see in the course of trial, holding him back.
Domo arigato, yes he did. He messed around and
from
found out.
getting at an individual who is dressed with a baseball cap, an AR rifle, and long pants. Excuse me, short pants. Who looks very much like Kyle Rittenhouse. Here's Mr. Rosenbaum during the evening. Him
Let's see if this
and his friend,
putting it on
or
default
associate,
view
Joshua
helps with
Zeminski,
the
had just come from starting trailer
bufferoonie there. Looks like
fire.
it does.
He arms himself with
Good.
a chain and goes up and down Sheridan Road, carrying this rather heavy chain used to tie
remember,
down
folks,
equipment.
This is from earlier
Next is a
today.
still
This is not
photograph
live.
taken from the Ultimate Gas
They're currently on lunch break. Hopefully they come back soon. Okay, I didn't do that. There we go.
Joshua Zeminski. The evidence will show that Mr. Zeminski, also named as Alec Blaine, and Mr. Rosenbaum are together throughout the evening. And Joshua Zeminski plays a central role in this scenario on August 25th. One, creating chaos and havoc with Mr. Rosenbaum. And two, more importantly, when we finally get to car source number 3, Mr. Zeminski is the individual who fires the first shot that evening.
Why isn't he in
behind
prison?
Kyle Rittenhouse, as he's being chased by Mr. Rosenbaum. Here's a picture with 2 circles. Mr. Rosenbaum and Mr. Zeminski starting the
I don't know,
trailer
Pickle.
on fire
Pickle asks if
on Sheridan Road. Along
did
with
they
the
ever
dumpster.
find out
You
what
see the
was in the
photograph,
plastic bag that
second
was
one
thrown, because
circled.
they don't fly like that when they're
Testimony
empty.
will
I don't
show
know.
that that is in fact Mr. Rosenbaum wearing a blue mask, not his shirt over his head, and carrying a bag, which I'm sure there will be much testimony about. Other individuals in this, once again, Mr. Zeminski. In the photograph taken at the Ultimate, this is a still from one of the videos
Jacob
you get to
asks,
see.
Jacob S.
Is Mr.
asks,
Zeminski
where are we? What's the
armed?
current state of affairs for this case? Right now, they delivered opening statements today. This is a replay of that. They are currently at lunch break. As soon as they come back from lunch break, I'm going to rejoin with a live stream of it. I wasn't able to stream it live earlier. Had stuff that I had to do. Let me see if I can find a actual live right now.
In this,
Nope.
once again, Mr.
They're not
Zeminski,
live yet.
in the photograph taken at the Ultimate, this is a still from one of the videos you'll get to see, is Mr. Zeminski armed with the weapon.
Rich White says water
that he
bottle,
ultimately
mouthwash, and
fires
toothpaste,
at the
according
car
to the
source
DA,
three.
Pickle. Oh, yeah, because
The
I'm sure
individual with the
Rosenbaum
red
was
hair
so
is Kelly Zeminski.
so
She has a backpack
concerned about his personal
and
hygiene
there's a
at
circle
the
on
moment.
her hand with a big, heavy flashlight. As you can see, there was no need that evening for a flashlight other than it being a weapon. Count two is an individual by the name of Richard McGinnis. He was a reporter covering the riots in Kenosha. He had covered the riots
I'm going to have
in
to go back
Portland,
later and watch
Minneapolis,
this entire opening
and
statement.
he will tell you when he's called to the witness stand by either
Just
the
so I'm
state
up
or
on it.
myself,
And this is
that
like
he was dressed like
entertainment
this
for me.
that night. The black T-shirt with the black, the helmet on his head.
Born to be a
And he
shooter,
had
Josh
interviewed
says
Kyle
Kyle's
Rittenhouse
saving
and
grace will
talked
come
to
down
him.
to the prosecutor,
And Mr.
essentially
Balch
inviting reasonable
and
doubt
Rittenhouse
into the
were
case
going to
without
go out
Kyle's
and see
lawyer
if
saying
anybody
a
needed
word.
medical
I'd almost bet he
attention
could win
that
if his
evening.
lawyer said
And
nothing.
Richie McGinnis was going to follow along.
That wouldn't shock me.
He will testify that he goes out with them
Squib!
and eventually
Glad
they
you
have an
could join me, brother.
interaction with the
Don't know for how long.
Yeah. Well, that's all right. Did you see any of this
individual
today?
who we refer to as Yellow Pants.
No, I was.
This
I've been at work.
is Gage
Been at work?
Grosswitz, the individual who is the victim,
Still at work.
or excuse
Gotcha.
me, the complaining witness in count 5. I apologize. And in that
You know what?
photograph,
Let's
you see that he's wearing
see
a
if we can
backpack,
share
and he has
this
his cell
at a
phone in his
source.
hand as he does throughout the evening filming.
That way.
Photograph 10, excuse me, the next photograph, is the
Ha!
evidence will show
Here we go.
Gage Grosswitz
Quits.
running
He can't say Grosskreutz for
down
some
Sheridan
reason.
Road, and you see his hand going into the back of his waistband, pulling out a firearm to arm himself. The evidence will show, through testimony of an individual by the name of Nathan DeBrune, that that yellow dot right up there is where Kyle Rittenhouse is as they chase him down Sheridan Road. Mr. Grosskreutz is not in any danger. Kyle Rittenhouse has already told him that he's going to turn himself into the police, yet he arms and continues with the mob to attack. This is a picture of Anthony Huber, the individual who attacks my
Alright, so
client
why
as
am I
he's
not
laying on the
seeing
ground
that?
after being kicked in the head by Jump Kick Man with his skateboard.
This dude cracks me
He's
up.
hit
Jump
him
kick, man.
with the skateboard as he was running down Sheridan Road, and then as he's laying prone on the ground, he comes in for another hit on his head, and then grabs Kyle Rittenhouse's firearm to try and take it away from him. The next photograph is a picture to look at the whole skateboard, the size of that skateboard, the trucks of that skateboard. Ladies and gentlemen, I would love to be able to
Could
hold
you
up
hear
that
any of this,
skateboard
Squib?
in front of you as evidence today.
No, you
Because then
can't.
could see
No.
it. You could see
No,
the
it's like the
weight
intro.
and the heft of what a skateboard is. And what that skateboard would do is somebody takes it in their hand and swings down on somebody's
How about now?
shoulder, head, and neck, trying to separate
Yes.
the head from the body. As
I
Mr.
finally
Huber
figured out that if I screen share on
Your Honor, I'm gonna
GunTube
object to
Chamber,
the
you guys will
argument
be able to
here,
hear
Your
it.
Honor. This is straying beyond a characterization of the evidence, and it's Mr. Richards' interpretation as an argument.
You'll see the photographs, you'll see the videos, and ultimately.
All right, let's check
you'll
around
get to
for
make the decision
more-
of what Anthony Huber.
Let's check around for other
In this, once again, Mr. Zeminski.
live streams here. See if we can find something from Court TV or Yahoo or something, man. Because see if they're live yet again.
A little bit in a few minutes.
Oh,
about
here
the
we
night of
are.
August 25th.
Back live,
Um,
I think.
other than that night,
Yep.
was
good.
there ever a time in which you went out in Kenosha holding or carrying that AR-15?
No.
How would you normally store or carry around that weapon if you
Can you hear this, Squib?
In my arms. I mean, if I'm driving, it would be, disassembled in the back
Yes,
of the
I
car
can hear it.
unloaded.
All right.
Maybe I was not clear on my question. I believe you said that up until the night of August 25th, you hadn't went out armed with that AR-15 in Kenosha. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
When you did have it with you in
This is
Kenosha,
Court
was it
TV's footage
disassembled
via
in the trunk
Yahoo
of your car?
Finance, by the way, just for credit
On the way
purposes.
there, yes, but once we had arrived, no.
Where did you normally keep your gun on a daily basis?
Locked up inside the house,
Whereabouts inside the house?
in the safe,
Where was that safe located?
in my dad's room.
Did you have a key to that safe?
No,
Who did?
my dad.
When you wanted to get your AR-15, did you have to get your dad's permission?
Yes,
And just so we're clear, when you say dad, that's technically your stepdad?
yes.
Okay. So, for example, in May, when you went up to Ladysmith with the defendant, who all came along with you?
It was me, Kyle, my brother Ray, my friend Cody, and Kyle's sister.
Do you remember approximately how long you spent up there?
My assumption is
Oh,
this
it was
is the
the weekend.
prosecutor.
When you went up there, I assume you brought your AR-15.
Yes.
Did anyone else bring any other guns along with them?
Yes, we also brought like a 12-gauge hunting shotgun, and then I think my friend brought his
You notice
little
how
22
specific
pistol.
he's being?
And I think you said earlier that your dad,
What do
your
you mean?
stepdad, and your brother were also interested in hunting?
He doesn't
Yes.
call it a weapon. He doesn't call it a firearm. He doesn't call it a gun. He doesn't call it a rifle. He calls it out as an AR-15 repeatedly again, and he doesn't
Do
change
you recall approximately
the
how many
terminology.
Oh, yeah.
rounds you and the defendant would have fired off at that firing range up at the property in Ladysmith when you were there that weekend?
A lot, I would say 100, 200.
Rookie numbers. Got to pump them up.
May I approach, Your Honor?
100, 200 ain't a lot of rounds.
No, but this is exactly what we talked about.
Mr. Black, I'm going to show you
Yeah.
a document which has been marked as exhibit number 7. Do you recognize the photograph on that document?
Yes,
Who is shown in that photograph?
Kyle.
Was that a photograph that was taken when you and the defendant were up in Ladysmith around May 1st of 2020?
What
Yes.
does being in
Does
Ladysmith
that
have to
photograph
do
show the
with
defendant holding
this
his
night, with the
AR-15?
night in question,
Yes.
with August
Your Honor, I
25th?
move exhibit number 7
When you
into
say that
evidence.
they were practicing to go kill people, they were practicing to go hunting people. Just like he saying 100 rounds was a lot. This is what I mean about it hurting instead of helping.
Them's rookie numbers, Pickle.
Sometimes these TVs are too smart for us. Could you turn that one on too, Natalie? And then can you look for number 1, please? Sorry. I'll do that.
4 doors, more whores? Well, that doesn't look good. Bruh, I'm just trying to be famous.
Mr. Black, do you recall
that don't
what
look good
day that photograph was taken when you were up there?
I want to say the same day we arrived.
Does that photograph show in the background there the property that your family had up in Ladysmith?
Yes,
Okay. And do you remember who it was who actually took that photograph?
yes.
Who was it?
My friend Cody.
Do you remember if that was before or after you and the defendant went to the firing range and
This is before.
practiced? Okay. All right. Thank you. Now, after you and the defendant returned to Kenosha from Ladysmith, and the defendant, that you purchased this gun for the defendant, what happened to the gun after that?
It was locked up in the safe.
Which safe is that?
The one in the garage. It was the one that required a code to open.
That's the garage at your father's place?
Yes.
Here in Kenosha?
Yes.
Stepfather? I'm going to use that.
Well, that's true,
interchangeably, but
Pickle.
technically
100
that's your
rounds in
stepfather.
slow fire precision
Yes.
is
Okay.
different,
Thank you,
but I
Judge.
don't think these guys were
Um,
going slow fire precision for some reason.
Did you have a code to open that safe?
Just
No.
a
Who
hunch.
did?
Only my stepdad.
So the defendant didn't either.
No.
Why didn't the defendant take that AR-15 back to Antioch with him?
Because we had an agreement that he wouldn't do that.
What was the reason why?
He was 17.
Was the defendant accepting of that? Did he understand that?
Yes.
Do you recall having any discussions with his mom about that?
Not me personally.
I want to talk about the time period between when you came back from Ladysmith in early May.
So is
and
this
the night of August 25th?
this kid on trial for a straw purchase,
that
or
period of
Kyle on
time,
trial for
Did
killing
the
them
defendant
scumbags?
ever possess
I'm
that
confused.
AR-15?
No.
On the day of August 25th, 2020, the day when all this stuff happened, did he possess that gun?
Yes.
How did it come to be that he gained possession of that gun on August 25th?
My dad had took a lot of the weapons we had out of the safe due to all the rioting and stashed them inside the house in case somebody were to come break into our house. And that gun happened to be one of those weapons.
Do you know how the defendant took possession of it that day?
I do not. All I'm aware of is that it was downstairs.
When did you first see the defendant with that weapon that day?
When I was in the kitchen. So about, I want to say, a few hours before we left.
And tell us what you saw when you were in the kitchen.
I saw him coming up the stairs with it.
With the AR-15?
Yes.
Did you hear him ask you permission to take that gun?
No.
Did you hear him ask permission from your father?
No.
When the defendant came upstairs with that gun, what, if anything, did he do with it?
I believe he set it down on the table and started looking for medical supplies.
What do you mean by medical supplies?
Like bandages, rubbing alcohol, certain things like that.
Do you know
Gee,
why
what was he doing
that?
with that?
Yes, in case somebody was hurt downtown.
We've seen some photographs that night of the defendant
Gee.
with a bag that looks like a medic bag. Do you remember him having that night?
Yes.
One that night? Do you know what was in that bag?
All of the medical supplies that he was gathering.
Were those medical supplies gathered from your house?
Yes.
Do you know if the defendant got any medical supplies from Walgreens or any other store or anything like that, or was it just all from your house?
What's the relevance?
I know there wasn't any from any store, but
Premeditated. They intended to have to use them after they went ahead and shot people criminally.
So I believe you described that the defendant
You're probably
went
right.
to
setting
the
him up.
kitchen, put it on the table. He was gathering some medical
You're
supplies.
probably
Is
right.
that
That's
fair to say?
probably exactly what this
What happened after that?
we
Weasel
proceeded
is
to get ready,
doing.
and then we went down to the lake.
When you say we, who do you mean?
Me and Kyle.
Where did you go when you went down by the lake?
At first we had parked by a friend's house, and then we walked to, I want to say, the back parking lot of Ruther.
And what did you do there?
We met up with our friend Nick, and then we proceeded to go to the car source locations.
When you say Nick, do you mean Nick Smith?
Yes.
When you say car source locations, we've heard some testimony about 3 different locations. Can you help us understand which one you're talking about?
The first one we went to was the one that would be closest to us right now, so further south.
I apologize, I was a little distracted there. Can you tell me again, which was the first one you went to?
The one that was further south.
63rd?
Is it me, or does this guy look like Geraldo's little
And when
brother?
you say we went there, was that the defendant, you and Nick Smith?
Yes.
What happened then?
Then we met the owner once again.
Talking
and
about
he gave us a
the
ride
prosecutor.
to the north
I assume it's the
location
prosecutor.
and dropped us off.
Okay, I'm sorry. You say you met the owner once again. When was the first time that you met him?
Previously in the day, I want to say it was around morning time when we were cleaning up all the graffiti.
So maybe I've jumped around a little bit, so I want to make things clear. If I could have just 1 second. Let's start. I apologize, it's my fault. I kind of jumped in the middle of the day. So I want to start at the beginning of that day. That was Tuesday, August 25th, 2020, the day that all these things happened. So let me back up for a little bit so we can kind of go in chronological order. I think it's easier for everybody to follow. The night, Monday night into Tuesday, did you stay at your own home?
Yes.
Did the defendant stay there as well?
I do not recall.
Do you remember when the first time would have been that you would have seen him on Tuesday morning?
I don't know specifically what time, but it was before noon.
When you saw him, was it at your house?
Yes.
What happened when you first saw him? What did the two of you do?
Me, him, and my brother Ray decided to go down to the lake and kind of just look at how things were, and then from there on we decided to help clean.
When you say you went down to the lake, do you mean the actual beach lakefront, or do you mean downtown?
Downtown.
Where did you go when you went downtown the first time?
We parked right next to the car source location that had already been burnt down, and then we walked across Sheridan to Luther.
I'm gonna, may I approach, Your Honor?
By the way, if you're out there and you have
of
gotten
the
a link,
area,
feel
and
free
I'm
to
gonna
stop
try
in
prop
and
it in such a way that we can all
talk with
see
us.
it. I wish I had
Let's have a conversation about this.
Mr. Black, I'll be a human easel for a moment.
Oh no! You still there? Hello?
I am here. I cannot get to the mute button quickly. You have been roboting, and there's no live box up in the upper left-hand corner of this. There
I
hasn't been
wonder
the
if my
entire
stream
time.
got taken down.
It wasn't live when I came on to begin with.
Yeah, it is. I'm watching
But
it on
I don't
YouTube.
have... Okay, well, it's not showing up on this end. So I don't know if that has anything to do with anything, but maybe not.
It's no
Your feed
bueno.
was roboting. Your feed was roboting on my end, and I don't think it was the signal I was getting in the building.
Well, out
but
there
it could have been.
on YouTube, they say they see me. You're still live over there on the tubes. I wonder if their signal took a shit. Okay, there's that. YouTube is not experiencing enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Okay, well, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so anyhow, since my coworkers have scattered, because they only like to show up when I'm talking, it sounds to me like he's looking for a lot of irrelevant stuff to set them up. And I'm wondering if he talked to this guy and he said, if you throw your friend under the bus, we'll drop the straw purchase. Because he bears some responsibility in this. He bought this thing. Yeah, and now, then again, this guy might have been told, just tell the truth no matter what, and it'll work itself out. And maybe that's all he's doing is just telling the truth. I'm not saying he should lie. But this almost sounds like he's got him, that or he interviewed him at least once, if not several times, and said, this guy's a moron. Because the way he's answering these questions, either he's the worst friend in the world or he's just that stupid. I can't believe his lawyer hasn't talked to him and advised him about how to answer these questions. You know, they go through this stuff before the trials, maybe because this is a pre-trial tape, right?
No, this is trial.
Then his lawyer should have gone through him and screened him. Or maybe he did, and this guy's just that stupid. He just drew a blank. He got up on the stand and, you know, somebody checked to see if he's peed himself already.
First came down.
Yes.
Okay, now we have
point
it
out
back.
Where that was?
Let's see if I can. There's that. There's
And
you.
for the record, you are pointing to
Right,
an area
let
that
me
is, I believe,
screen
on
share this
59th
with
Street,
the Squibador.
just east of Sheridan Road. Is that correct?
Yes.
And on this map, there's a label there of one of the car source locations at that intersection, at that corner. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay.
You have it,
described
Squib?
one of the car source locations as one that had been affected by the events of the previous night, and I'm not sure what word you
Yeah, I
exactly
can hear it.
used, but,
Okay.
can you describe for us when you were at that particular
So,
car source
back in business.
location, which is on
Woohoo!
the northeast
Thank you for your
corner of
patience out there. It
59th
wouldn't be
and
the right of the
Sheridan.
people without
What did
technical
you observe?
diddlies.
Every car was burnt to ash. There was a lot of garbage and graffiti everywhere.
Now,
Yeah,
there's
Jacob
a
asked
structure
when
on
this
that
happened, why did
property,
it take so
an
long
office
for
of some
trial.
sort.
This is
Did you
common
observe that
for
office as well?
particularly
Yes, it
a
was
murder
burnt down.
trial to
Did
take
you
a
look
while
inside?
to get there. It's not uncommon for people to sit in jail
Is it
for
fair
a
to say
year
that every
until they
car
get
in that
trial.
lot was burned?
Kyle was lucky to be
to
able
the
to get out on
chassis
bail, I
almost.
think.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you indicated you parked near there and looked at that location. Is that correct?
Yes.
What did you do next?
From then we walked to, which is now Harborside.
And
Yeah,
on
Patriot,
that
me
map,
too. I
can
really
you
can't
show us
believe the
where
lawyer
that would
wasn't
be?
throwing out some objections based on relevance. But
I don't know if it's on the map exactly, but it would be more south up there.
And when you say south, you mean actually north?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So you're talking about the area near Ruther High School?
Yes.
Which would be right across the square from where we're at right now?
Yes.
And why was it that you walked in that direction?
We noticed there was people cleaning the graffiti, and that was my old school, so we decided to go help.
Did you help?
Yes.
And what did you do to help?
Scrubbed the walls.
Did the defendant help as well?
Yes.
And how much time did you spend doing that?
If this is the defense attorney,
2
what the
hours,
hell?
About 2.5 hours.
Did you have any supplies on your own to use to clean, or did people already have some?
They had some. I personally left by myself to go get sandpaper, and then I came back to try it.
I've never tried to clean graffiti off a wall. How does it work?
Not very well.
Well, I appreciate your efforts. What happened then after that?
From then we went back to the house and went home.
So you got back in your car and drove back to your house?
Yes.
And your brother came along?
Yes.
What
Domo
happened next?
Arigato Roboto
From then,
says
that's
this
when
is
we
the
ended up
prosecution.
getting the
If
guns.
this is the prosecution,
Now, we talked earlier about a
if
time
I were
in
the
which
prosecutor,
defendant
I
came
wouldn't want to bring up the
upstairs to
fact
kitchen
that
with
Kyle and his
gun.
buddy were there
He started
cleaning
to gather
graffiti.
some medical supplies. Are we at that point in the chronology?
Yes.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure I've got everything in order. Then let's go forward from there. What happened after the
I believe
defendant
he's
was
just a
gathering
witness.
medical supplies, he had the gun in the kitchen. What happened then?
As soon as we were ready, we went down to the lake, and that's when we parked at Nick Smith's house.
And I don't know if it is on that map or not. Is his house located somewhere in that area?
Yeah, it's not on the map, but it would be if the map was up more.
Okay. If the map was up
If
more?
the map were up more, yes.
Okay. So your friend Nick Smith lives somewhere near this area. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, behind Ruther.
Okay. And you went to his house. Is that right?
Yes.
Who came with you?
Just me and Kyle.
Did you have your guns?
Yes.
Did you have any ammunition for your gun?
Yes.
You personally?
Yes.
Do you know if the defendant did?
Yes.
Well, it's pretty obvious
We've had
he
some
did.
discussions at various points already in this case about a strap or some sort of device for retaining the gun. Did you have
It's
that
called a
type of
sling.
item with you?
Yes.
And did the defendant?
Yes.
Do you know how those were, how you acquired those?
Yes, from Jelensky's.
When did you do that?
I want to say the middle of that day, in between us getting back from cleaning up graffiti and before we left.
So earlier you described coming down, looking at the burnt out car source location, going over to Harborside or Ruther and cleaning up some graffiti, and then leaving the downtown area. Is
Yes.
that right? Is that when you went to Jelensky's?
We did stop at the house first, and then I believe it was like an hour until we did go to Jelensky's.
When you say we, who all went to Jelensky's?
He's gonna
Just me and
he's
Kyle.
gonna try to turn
What was your
having a
purpose
sling
of going
affixed to your rifle into
To get a
something
sling.
sinister.
Why did
Watch.
you want a sling?
So we didn't have to hold it the entire time we were walking.
Do you recall if you and the defendant both got the same kind of sling?
Yes, we did.
Who actually went in and purchased the sling?
Kyle.
And after that, leaving Jelensky's, did you then go back home again?
Yes.
Watch. They'll
And
be
that's
pressing
when
the
you
outlaw
acquired,
slings
or the
next.
defendant acquired the gun and the medical supplies?
Yes.
We have to have
And
deadly
then
assault
after
sling
that,
control.
You said you came back down to the lakefront. Is that right?
Yes.
Where did you go when you came back?
We went to Nick Smith's, and then we met him at the Ruther parking lot, and from then on we walked to the car's first location.
Now, I want to stop you for a second because you made a mention earlier of the owner of CarSource. Do you know that person's name?
I believe his name was Sam.
When, if at all, did you encounter him on that particular day?
We encountered him twice that day. The first time when we were cleaning graffiti, on our way back to the car, when we were leaving, we stopped and talked to him.
Patriot says this
And
guy
then
must have watched Squid's
After we had
hasty
met
sling
with
video.
Nick later that day, he had brought us to Car Source to meet with him again.
So let's talk about the first time. You described cleaning graffiti at Ruther, which is kind of at the north end of this map. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And then you encountered this Sam on your way back to your car, which I believe you said was parked at 58th and Sheridan by that first car source location.
Yes.
Where in that process did you physically meet Sam?
On the corner next to Car Source, not the one that had originally got burnt down, but the next one over across the street.
Can you please use your pointer to show us where that was?
About right at the corner right there.
You're pointing to the southwest corner of the intersection of 59th and Sheridan, is that right?
Yes.
Now, did you, at this particular moment when you were meeting with Sam that day, did you observe the condition of that particular car source location?
Yes.
How did it appear to you?
It wasn't entirely destroyed, but there were some cars that were damaged.
When you say damaged, what did the damage look like?
Like kicked in doors and hoods and shattered windshields.
Did there appear to be any fire damage?
No.
What about the building? Did you make any observations of that?
It was just boarded up.
Okay. And when you talked to Sam that first time, this first conversation, what did you talk about?
We basically just talked about the defamation that he had in his the one that had actually burned down, and how much money he lost, and how deeply he would be in case all his other buildings did burn down.
And was there anything more that you talked about with him?
We did exchange phone numbers in case he needed any help.
Did you feel at that point like you wanted to help him?
I mean, my help was definitely there, but I didn't offer any help at that point.
Do you know if the defendant did?
I'm unaware.
And when you say exchange phone numbers with Sam, did you personally give him your number?
Yes.
Do you know if the defendant did?
Yes.
And then you said, we're going to fast forward a little bit because we've covered some of the intervening time period. You said at some point you came back down later, you parked at Nick Smith's house, and I think you said
He's
you went
setting
to
him
a
up with
different
this line of
parking lot.
questions
Yes.
for
And then at
premeditation.
some point
Everything
you said
has
you
to do
went
with
down to the car
premeditation.
source. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Which
exactly
car
what he's
source
doing.
did you go to after you left the Ruther?
He's going to
parking lot?
try
The one that would be
anyway.
closest to Ruther, on the same side of Sheridan.
Is it that same one we were just talking about on the southwest corner of 59th and
Yes.
Sheridan? Now, do you recall approximately what time of day it was that you came back downtown?
I'd say around 5 p.m.
And you and the defendant both had your guns with you,
Yes.
and those straps,
Yes.
and I believe you said you had ammo too?
Yes.
When you met with Nick Smith in the Ruther parking lot, was there anyone else there
Kyle went
besides
to the
three
store
of
to
you?
get us
There was some
strapped
other
so that
people
he
we
could,
had-
and his
we didn't
ammunition
know
so that he
that
could
had
make
also
sure
showed up.
he was equipped to engage
there
in
you said
deadly
you
slaughter.
walked to the car
That's
source
exactly
at
what.
59th
Yeah,
and
you're
Sheridan?
right,
Yes.
Squib.
Why
You're
did
right.
you go there?
Hey guys, a barbecue.
We were kind of just following Nick. About halfway there, we found out that we were meeting the owner Sam again.
Did you actually meet the owner, Sam? Again?
Domo
met
arigato
his
roboto.
brother,
That point
so
is
the other owner.
absolutely, completely,
Where
totally, and
physically on that
utterly
map can you
irrelevant
point
to
to
whether or
show us
not
where
he
you
was able
actually
to.
met with the
He
brother?
was justified in using force in self-defense.
So you're pointing
Whether
again
he
to
was
that same car source
quote
at
unquote
59th
legally
and Sheridan?
allowed to
Yes.
be
On the
there,
southwest
and
corner?
even whether he was
when you met
legally
with him,
allowed to have
were
the
you in
weapon
the building? Were
are
you
2 points that
outside?
are
were
legally
outside.
speaking completely
what you talked about?
irrelevant to his.
We just talked about
use of
pretty
self-defense.
much how to get in if we needed to, and then Nick had brought up if there was any way to get on the roof, and if there was any keys we needed to get inside.
Why were you having this discussion with the brother at that time?
Pretty much just to know where to stand, to make sure that a lot of us were safe and what we were allowed to do, and if we were allowed to go inside the building in case something happened.
So it sounds like there was some discussion of physically staying at that location.
Yes.
Why?
That's one of the locations we didn't want to end up burning down.
Was it your intention then to stay and protect that car source location?
Yes.
Was that something that the defendant was also planning to do, as far as you know?
Yes.
What about Nick Smith? Him too?
Yes.
Now, when the three of you, the defendant, and Nick Smith, meet with this brother at that car source at that time, was there anyone else involved in protecting that location at that time?
Just the people we had previously met with at Ruther. They weren't
By the way,
exactly
folks,
in
just
the conversation
for
with who was going where.
The purposes
at
of
the
giving
time.
credit where credit is due.
What
This
happened
feed
after
is
you
from
met with
Court
the brother at
TV
that
via
car
Yahoo
source?
Finance.
Me, Kyle, and Nick had got a ride from the brother to the, I want to say, south location, and then he had dropped us off there.
Could you please use your laser pointer to show us on the map where the south location is that you're talking about? And you're pointing to the car source location that is at the northwest corner of 63rd and Sheridan, is that right?
Yes.
And you said the brother gave you a ride in his car down there?
Yes.
When you got down there, did the brother stick around or did he leave?
He stayed for about 30 minutes and then he left.
Did you meet with anyone else down there?
Yeah, that's when a lot of people that we didn't really know had came from out of town and other cities to come help.
Do you, as you sit here today, do you remember the names of any of those people?
Very few.
What was going to be the plan for that night?
The plan was to have a decent amount of us split up between the two locations and then kind of stay there to make sure nothing bad happened.
Which location were you going to go to?
The one closest to Ruther.
The one up at 59th?
Yes.
What about the defendant?
He was going with me.
So the two of you were going to be assigned to protect the 59th Street car source.
Yes.
Was there another group that was going to be assigned to guard the 63rd Street car source?
Yes.
Do you know who any of those people were?
No.
Were those people there in person when you guys were making these plans?
Yes.
So as far as you could tell, everybody understood who was going to be at one location and who was going to be at the other?
Yes.
What did you do next?
Then we walked to the car source location closest to Ruther.
Once you got there, is that where you personally stayed for the rest of the night?
Yes.
And again, you had your gun,
Yes.
and the defendant had his as well.
Yes.
Tell us about what you did when you were at 59th Street car source.
I had climbed the ladder and got on the roof of the building to kind of just watch out for people, and that's kind of where I stayed all night.
Why did you decide to go up on the roof?
I kind of didn't want to be in the mix of a lot of problems. I didn't want any, I didn't want to get hurt. I didn't want to cause any problems. I figured it would be a lot safer up on top.
Why did you bring your gun?
In case something bad did happen and I needed to protect myself.
When you say something bad happened, what were you worried about happening?
Anything, being shot at, somebody coming up on the roof. I mean, there's a ladder in the back, so anybody could get up. Anything.
So if someone climbed up on the roof, were you going to use that gun?
Not really. I mean, it depends what they were doing.
You talked about not wanting to be on the ground because of your concern about...
He's using this line of questioning to establish that Kyle wanted to be on the ground and in the mix of it because he wanted to kill someone.
Why was that?
People could easily get access to hurting me or coming up closer to me.
When you say people, who are you worried about?
Anyone riding, anybody that was there for the wrong intentions.
Rich White says, he went up on the roof? He doesn't look Korean.
What got it in your mind that night that you felt there would be people out on the street that would want to hurt you if you were down on the ground?
I had heard about the previous night and how it was, and I knew that there was a lot of people fighting each other and a lot of violence.
See, my answer to that, prosecutor, would have been, you're kidding, right?
If I was going to go there, making sure that I could protect myself if I needed to.
But you were also there to protect the car source location.
Yes.
How were you going to do that from up on the roof?
I'm helping anybody else that was there. I'm spotting people that were throwing things.
And then what? If you see somebody throwing something, you had a gun, were you planning on shooting them?
No. I mean, when somebody sees a weapon, they're not going to want to start any problems, obviously. If I see somebody with a weapon, I'm not going to want to initiate a problem.
Was it part of your
unless you're Rosenbaum
thought process that night that by having the type of weapon you did, that it would deter others from attacking you?
Objection, leading.
Were there others in your group at 59th Street car source besides the defendant who were similarly armed?
Yes.
How many?
Everybody except for one person.
And when you say everybody, how many people are we talking about?
6 or 7.
So it's fair to say that there were, other than you and the defendant, there were another 6 or 7 people that were all carrying AR-15 type weapons.
Yes.
When you were up on the roof that night, what observations, if any, did you make about the crowd and what was going on the ground?
There's a lot of violence, a lot of screaming, a lot of people throwing things. You could definitely tell that people weren't just there for the reason they were. It wasn't a safe place to be at all.
Now,
Jacob S. wants to know what started the riots to begin with.
the timing of
This
the
was
evening.
over
And
the
I'll
Jacob
represent
Blake
to
thing,
you
wasn't it?
that, at some point in the evening there were crowds right out front of this courthouse, and then there were crowds that were pushed south on Sheridan. Do you remember anything like that?
Yes.
Can you tell us in your own words, when you first got to Car Source at 59th Street, was there a lot of people out in front of the building on the street?
No.
Did that change?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Later through on the night, the crowd got pushed back closer and closer to us.
And we say pushed back. Who was pushing them back?
The police.
And how were they doing that?
With the big trucks and a lot of rubber bullets and.
The crowd that was being pushed back, what was their behavior like when they passed in front of your location?
Very violent. Very upset.
When you say violent, can you give us examples of the type of violence you saw?
Saying a lot of threats, throwing a lot of things, a lot of things along the lines of that.
And when you say they would say a lot of threats, who were those threats directed at?
Us, the police, sometimes even people in the crowd.
Do you have any idea why the people out on the street would make any threats to your group?
I have no idea.
Well, counselor, because they're assholes.
Did you ever see anyone actually injured as a result of any of this violence that you've talked about?
No.
Did you see anyone shoot at anyone else?
No.
Did you ever consider using your gun to shoot at anyone?
No.
Was there a time in which you and the other members of your group observed people on the lot to the north of that location, which is marked on that map as St. James Church? Was there a time when you saw that?
Yes.
Okay. And could you just use your laser pointer?
Have a good one,
and
Patriot.
point at that St. James Church for us, please? Okay, and that's on the north side of 59th, on the northwest corner of 59th and Sheridan. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes, 59th. Now, in this map,
Vanessa
which is
Kitty
a
says,
printout
bunch
from a
of criminals
satellite,
making
there's a
criminal acts.
structure
Kyle
there
was
next to
defending
St.
himself
James
from
Church.
violent
Was
criminals
that
chasing him
structure
down.
standing
His
on the night of
control
August
over
25th,
not just
2020?
mowing them
No.
down
What was the
should
condition
be
of that
commended.
lot?
I
Bunch of
agree.
rubble and concrete blocks.
Now, I asked you about whether you saw folks on that lot, and I believe you said you did. Is that right?
Yes.
What did you observe about those people?
They were obviously hiding. It was pitch black outside. We couldn't see anything besides a lot of shadows hiding behind the rocks.
What action, if any, did you and the other members of your group take as a result of seeing those people hiding?
We all started yelling, telling them to stop hiding and to go away.
Did you take any physical action with your gun towards them?
We're
We
not
were
doing
ready in
that
case they did have
today,
guns.
Patriot.
And when you say you were
Says
ready,
if he doesn't
what
make it back, he
exactly
picks
did you
number
do with
2.
your gun?
Yeah, we're
We
not
had
we're
aimed
not
them.
doing moron of the week today.
would point your gun at those
That's
people?
Friday.
In the direction.
Did the defendant do that?
I am unaware.
You didn't see the defendant point his gun at those people?
No, I was looking at the construction site.
And you said you saw people hiding and you didn't know whether they had guns or not?
Not until the very end.
What did you see in the very end?
As soon as they did come from hiding, they started running, and I noticed one of the people did have a gun.
What type of gun?
It looks like a similar weapon to the one me and Kyle had.
When you say you saw them running, where were they running?
They were running, I want to say west towards the lake across Sheridan.
And you said it was dark. You said you eventually saw them with a gun. When they were in that lot north of you, did you see anyone point a gun at you?
No.
Did you see anyone with a gun at that particular moment?
No.
Did anyone fire any shots?
No.
And I believe you said earlier during this.
I gotta
entire
think my
evening,
answer
you
would have
stayed up on the
to.
roof the
Did you
whole
see
time.
anyone
Yes.
point a gun at
Did
you?
you
Would have
ever
been.
get down
No,
and
counselor,
wander
because
off
if I
that
had,
15th
I'd be the
Street
one
lot
on trial.
to go anywhere else?
No.
We have heard in this case, after the fact, that there were some individuals out on the street that night whose names are Anthony Huber, Joseph Rosenbaum, Gage Grosskreutz. I assume as you sit here today, you're familiar with those names.
Yes.
On that particular night, had you ever met any of those people before?
No.
Did you know any of their names?
No.
Have you since seen photographs of those people so you know what they look like?
Yes.
Thinking
Looked
back to that night,
like
did you see
in
any
two
of them?
cases.
No.
Do you have any memory of seeing Joseph Rosenbaum that night?
No.
Do you have any memory of seeing Anthony Huber that night?
No.
Do you have any memory of seeing Gage Grosskreutz that night?
No.
Now, I asked you a little bit about what you observed of the crowd on the street in front of this location. Where was the defendant when that crowd was going by? Do you know?
Absolutely correct, Lord Net Splits. He says
around the Ultimate
it's
gas
pretty
station.
clear a homegrown Antifa terrorist mob was
there a
after him
time
and
in
tried
which
to
the
murder him.
defendant was
He acted in
at
defense
59th
of himself and
when there
innocent
were
civilians being
protesters
attacked
out
by
in front of that
Antifa.
location?
59th Street.
Bingo.
Your car source location.
I want to say previously right before
Right before what?
right before they had got to us.
Okay. What, if anything, did you observe the defendant doing during that time?
I noticed that as soon as they did get to us, there was somebody that was hurt, and he went and helped them and brought them back into the building. And then as soon as they were all like bandaged up, he brought them out.
Do you know what sort of injury they had suffered?
I do not.
Yeah, he
You
was
say
there to
you
hurt
saw
people
them,
and kill
go into the
people
building.
and then patch them up.
Did you actually see with your own eyes them enter the building?
Yes.
And the supplies that the defendant had in his medic bag or something, did those all come from your residence?
Yes.
Now,
He
there came a
premeditatedly
time
helped
in which
people.
The defendant
The evil.
was involved in some shootings that night, and we know that. What I want to ask is, what do you remember about that time period that we now know was the time of the shootings?
I remember that one of us had received information that one of the car source dealerships was being vandalized or people were trying to burn it down. Kyle was not able to make it back to us, our location, so either me or Nick called him and told him about what was happening, and then the last I saw of him was him running towards that direction, and then from then on I just heard gunshots.
Now, you said you heard some information about the 63rd Street car source. Where did that information come from?
I'm unaware of that.
And you said somebody received that information. Do you recall if that was you personally who received that information?
I don't exactly know if it was me or Nick.
And you said somebody contacted the defendant. Was that over the phone?
Yes.
Do you recall who that was?
I do not.
You've given a statement about this night already to the police, is that right?
Yes.
And you and I have talked previously with your attorney, Mr. Cotton, who's in the second row with the purple tie, about this situation, right?
Yes.
At no point did you mention to the police that you were the one who called the defendant, is that correct?
Yes.
And at no point have you mentioned in our meetings that you were the one who called the defendant, is that correct?
Yes.
You said you saw the defendant heading down and then you heard some gunshots. What is the next thing you remember about the defendant after that?
I didn't believe the gunshots were actually his until I got a phone call, and I answered it, and he just said, I shot somebody, and then hung up right away.
When did you see him next after that?
I want to say just a few minutes right after that.
Was that back at 59th Street?
Yeah, that was at the original location.
What observations, if any, did you make about the defendant when you saw him?
He was freaking out. He was really scared. He was pale, sweating a lot. You could tell he was just scared.
Did he say anything?
He wasn't really talking. He just said he had to do it. It was self-defense. People are trying to hurt him.
Did he ever say to you that someone was trying to attack him with a gun?
No.
Did he ever say to you that someone was trying to attack him with a knife?
No.
Did he ever say to you that anyone was trying to attack him with any sort of weapon?
No.
What happened after that?
It's pretty
After
obvious
that,
they did, though,
we
because
kinda
looking
all
at the
tried to calm
video,
him down. There was some
Rosenbaum
people
tried
yelling.
to grab Kyle's gun.
We
Huber
kinda made the idea that
tried to
he should
grab
turn himself in,
Kyle's
but
gun
we couldn't do it in the one
after
in Kenosha because there's people riding at the
freaking
front doors. So
hitting him
I
in the
took
head
him
with a
home,
skateboard,
then
and Grosskreutz
he should
had a
turn himself in
pistol.
at the nearest,
You can't
police
refute
department.
that.
When you say you took him home, did that mean you drove back down to Antioch?
Yes.
When you got down there,
Political
was anyone else
prosecutor
at the
piece of
defendant's
crap.
residence?
No.
How long was it before anyone came back?
I want to say 5 to 10 minutes.
And who all came back at that point?
The rest of his family.
And that would be his mother and his 2 sisters?
Yes.
Was there any discussion at that time about what the defendant should do?
Leave. Get out of town.
To where?
One of their family's properties in either Michigan or West Virginia.
What was your reaction to that?
Said no, he should turn himself in.
Were you urging the defendant to not flee, but instead to go turn himself in?
Yes.
Did he follow your advice?
Yes.
A couple more things, Mr. Black. Do you know what the defendant's occupation was around the time of August of 2020?
A lifeguard at the Rexplex.
We've seen some videos. I'll represent to you that at various points on that evening, the defendant tells people that he is an EMT. Do you know anything about that?
I know he has some training in that type of field, but that's kind of the most of my knowledge.
Do you know whether he had ever worked as a paramedic?
No.
Do you know whether he'd ever worked as an EMT?
No.
Now, you have talked about the fact that there was an understanding between you and the defendant that because he was 17 years old, he could not legally possess a firearm. Is that correct?
Yes.
The jury has been told, I'll
God, I'm gonna
represent to you,
misdemeanor.
that there's a charge against the defendant in this case for possession of a weapon by someone under the age of 18. Has the person who provided the gun to the defendant, which was used to kill other people, are you facing criminal charges?
Yes.
In fact, have I not personally drafted a criminal complaint against you, charging you with 2 felony counts of providing that gun to the defendant, which were used to kill 2 separate people? Is that correct?
Yes.
And that is a case, a criminal case, that I'm prosecuting that is still pending. Is that right?
Yes.
As a criminal defendant in that case, are you aware of the fact that you have a Fifth Amendment right to remain silent and not answer any questions about any of that?
Yes.
Have you decided today to come in front of this jury and tell us the truth about everything,
Yes.
despite your Fifth Amendment right?
Yes.
Have I made any promises to you about what might happen in your criminal case in exchange for your testimony today?
No.
You have an attorney here, Mr. Cotton, who is your attorney in that case. Is that right?
Yes.
Love it.
Yeah, pretty much. I smell a big steaming pile of bullshit.
I want to confer, see if there's anything else I wanted to cover. Just a couple more things, Mr. Black, that I've neglected to mention. You mentioned that you observed that the defendant was pale and sweaty, I think you said freaking out when he came back from the shootings that night. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you see any injuries on him?
There was some red marks on his head, but besides that, no.
Did he say anything to you about any injuries that he suffered?
Just that his head hurt.
Well, that
Finally,
would probably be from the punch
at
in the
one
back of
point
the
in
head
the
and the
evening,
skateboard to the back of the head.
There's some indication on some videos that there might have been some folks behind the 59th Street car source, maybe throwing some rocks or something like that. Do you remember anything about that?
Yes.
What do you remember about that?
Out of nowhere, there's like people behind us in the neighborhood throwing rocks at us on top of the roof.
What, if anything, did you do about that?
Tried to dodge them.
You had a gun, correct?
Yes.
Did you think about using that to defend yourself?
No.
Why not?
So they're just rocks. I mean, they were throwing them from a distance, so I didn't really feel like I was in like great bodily harm or being hurt.
Do you remember if the defendant said or did anything in reaction to those folks?
No.
I have nothing further.
No,
Thank you.
he didn't, or no, I don't remember.
No, he didn't.
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Cross-examine?
Yes, please.
Yeah, this defense attorney has got a lot of damage repair to do. I got my reservations already about this.
We need a bigger podium.
than what Arigato says. If you can dodge a rock, you can dodge
Dominic, excuse me, Mr. Black, I apologize. You knew Kyle Rittenhouse through his sister, Mackenzie.
Yes.
And when you were 18, 19, you were dating Mackenzie.
Yes.
And you and Kyle were good friends.
Yes.
And you referred to each other as brothers.
Yes.
And you talked about Kyle taking the gun out of your father's basement without permission. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And so up until that point, according to your testimony, you knew nothing about Kyle taking the gun down to Car Source that night.
No, I was definitely aware of it. I kind of never really went into the inside my mind. I never really clicked that, you know, like, hey, he shouldn't have that.
No, what I'm getting at is whether it clicked at that point or not, it's your testimony to these 20 people from Kenosha County that you didn't know about it until he brought it up from the basement on August 25th.
Oh, yes.
You agree with that statement?
Yes.
Okay. Then, can you tell me why earlier in the date you guys did go to Jelensky's, correct?
Yes.
You drove to Jelensky's.
Well, this was after he had brought the gun up.
That's not what your testimony was on direct examination.
That's how it went.
Okay, so he brings the gun up. You go to Jelensky's.
Yeah, Vanessa,
and
the
then go
prosecution
right downtown.
called him
That's what your
as a
testimony is on
witness.
cross-examination.
Yes.
Okay. Whose idea was it to go to Jelensky's?
I don't recall.
But you said Kyle went into Jelensky's alone.
Yes.
And you don't know why he was going into Jelensky's?
I knew why he was going in there.
Okay, why?
To get a sling.
Okay. And then out of the goodness of his heart, he bought you one?
The plan was for both of us to get one.
Okay. So you knew he was going there to get slings, correct?
Yes.
You didn't tell him not to bring the gun, correct?
No.
Now, Kyle Rittenhouse's gun this is your gun, correct?
Legally, yes.
And this is an optic on the top of that gun, correct?
Yes.
Good Lord, cameraman, pan it!
This optic, does it shoot a laser beam out of it?
Not out of it. I mean, it projects one inside of it, yes.
Right, but if I were to point this gun, and obviously I can't do it here in a courtroom, but if I were to point this gun at you from here, there would be no red or green dot on your chest.
No.
This is the optic from Kyle Rittenhouse's gun. Do you need to see it?
No.
Do you agree that this is?
Yes.
This does not project a laser dot on you either, correct?
No.
So if someone said Kyle Rittenhouse put a laser from his weapon on their chest, that's impossible, correct?
Correct.
Now, Mr. Binger asked you about the charges that you currently have pending against you, correct?
Yes.
And those charges are a result of you providing the gun to my client.
Yes.
And each of those is punishable by 6 years in the Wisconsin State Prison, correct?
Yes.
And you're testifying here today, hoping that Mr. Binger will give you consideration on those charges and not send you to prison, correct?
Yes.
And you just,
Well, to be precise, Mr. Binger can't send him to prison. Mr. Binger can prosecute him, and a judge could send him to prison if he's found guilty.
Mr. Binger can make a recommendation of prison.
True. And yes,
Mr. Binger can make a recommendation of prison, correct?
Yes.
And you're hoping that by you testifying, he doesn't make a recommendation of prison, correct?
Yes.
Probation.
There's no really assuming what I get out of this.
There haven't been any promises made. I'm asking you what you're hoping.
I'm hoping for whatever the best is I get. I don't know what it is.
Okay. Your attorney, Mr. Koenig, he's met with you,
I don't
Mr. Binger,
envy this kid. He's in a
Yes.
bad spot.
When's the last time you guys met?
I want to say a few days before this date.
You didn't meet today?
Oh, I mean, yeah, we did meet today.
When's the last time before today? Last week sometime?
Yeah.
Okay. You're aware that I asked your attorney if you'd be willing to meet with me, correct?
No.
No? On August 26th of 2020, you were at the
Correct, Pickle.
Antioch
That's what it
Police
sounds
Department
like. The
when
DA is
Kyle
not
turned himself
guaranteed
in,
anything,
correct?
but he's hoping for a lesser sentence.
And you were interviewed in the early morning hours of August 26th by, I'm fine, Detective Antaramian.
Yes.
And he's the individual who's the second from closest to the jury, correct?
Yes.
You met with him for a little over an hour?
Yeah, it was well over an hour.
And that was when everything was fresh in your memory, correct?
Somewhat. I was very tired.
But it's
Yeah, it was
much nearer in time than it is today, correct?
Yes.
And you told him on that date, it was audio and videotape.
Jacob
what you
S. wants to
remember,
know, the
correct?
kid that
Yes.
they're being interviewed right now, they're saying that there are charges against him. What specifically is he charged with? He's charged with making a straw purchase and with furnishing a firearm to a minor. Well, I don't know for a fact he's charged with a straw purchase, but the basic charge is he bought the gun for Kyle. That's what he's being charged with.
Do you remember talking to Detective Antaramian and telling
And he's
him
testifying in hopes of getting
whose
a lighter
idea it was
punishment.
to go to Car Source to protect the property?
Yes.
Was it, I'm going to give you three choices, yours, Kyle's, or Nick Smith's?
Nick Smith's.
When you got to Car Source, after you'd stopped at Jelinski's, you meet with Nick Smith?
Yes.
And you knew that Nick had worked at Car Source?
Yeah.
And he introduced you guys to Sam and to his brother.
I wouldn't say introduced. We had met Sam previously that day, but his brother we had not met. Sir, I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit Defendants 30. Can you tell me what that is? This is the second location we went to when Sam, I don't remember if it was Sam or his brother, had given us a ride, me, Kyle, and Nick, to the location that would be more north. And that's where we met up with a lot of people that we really didn't know.
Okay, that would be Car Source at 63rd and Sheridan.
The one right down here.
Right here.
Yes.
Sheridan and 63rd.
Okay,
Right?
yes.
The far right of that photograph, who is that depicted in the photo?
The far right?
Far left, where I'm pointing, I'm sorry.
The co-owner of Car Source?
So is that Sam or is that his brother?
I believe that's his brother.
Okay. Where are you in this picture?
The far right.
The far right?
Yes.
Who's standing next to you?
Kyle.
And what's in front of Kyle's feet?
First aid box?
Okay. that's a first aid box that is different from his first aid pack that he wears on his side, correct?
Yes.
Where is Nick Smith in this photograph?
He is 2 people to the left of Kyle wearing the white hat.
Okay, so he's got a white hat with a cross on it? Yes?
Yes.
Now, you know the owner, you know Nick, and you know Kyle. Everybody else in that photograph, had you ever seen them before that day?
No.
Did you have any plan of ever meeting up with those individuals to help protect CarSource?
No.
They just came along when you were at CarSource and offered their services to help, correct?
Yes.
Does the name Ryan Balch mean anything to you?
Yes, it's somewhat clear.
Okay. And who is Ryan Balch today to you?
I never really got to meet him a whole lot. He is one of the people that showed up randomly or unexpectedly.
And you talk about you wanting to be on the roof, correct?
Yes.
You told Nick Smith you wanted Kyle to be on the roof, correct?
Yes.
And Nick Smith said, no, we wanted Kyle on the ground.
Yes.
Because he's a medic and he can provide services, correct?
Yes.
You saw Kyle
Good.
fix somebody's hand who had a big gash in it.
Yes.
You saw him give aid to a woman who had been shot by a gas ball.
I'm unaware of that.
Okay. You saw Kyle going out with other individuals in that picture, Exhibit 30, and put out some fires, correct?
Yes.
And did you see anybody that evening starting any fires?
Plenty of people.
Plenty of people starting fires?
Yes.
Did you see the individuals who took the trailer from the lot of rubble, put it out in the street, and started on fire?
I did not see that.
You didn't watch that?
No.
Weren't paying attention?
I don't know if I don't remember or if I missed it.
Okay. What about the porta potty?
Yes, I saw that.
Okay. Describe that.
People were tipping over a porta potty and lighting it on fire.
Okay. And you can't, as you sit here today, say who did that, but you know what happened.
Yes.
Okay. And you don't know what Mr. Rosenbaum did or didn't do because you weren't paying attention to him.
Yes.
You don't know whether Mr. Rosenbaum, let me ask it this way, simpler. You know of nothing that happened down at the 63rd Street and Sheridan Road CarSource.
No.
Couldn't see it,
No.
even though you're on the roof.
Yep.
Now, I'll answer it this way. Kyle's phone records have you calling him and sending him down to CarSource 3. You don't dispute that, do you?
I don't remember it.
I'm not, if his phone records say he got a phone call from Nick Smith, you don't dispute that.
Not exactly, no.
Okay. And the whole idea was to send Kyle down to CarSource 3, the 63rd Street CarSource, because you guys had received a report that the people who were supposed to be protecting it had left, correct?
Yes.
And the property was being destroyed.
Yes.
You didn't know that Kyle had been separated from Mr. Balch at that point.
I did not.
So you tell him to go down there and protect that property because the cars are being bashed in, correct?
Yes.
It was either you or Nick Smith.
Yes.
And from where you were, you could see Kyle going down in that direction.
Yes.
And it wasn't the second he goes down there, you hear shots. He goes out of your view, there's a fairly lengthy period of time, you hear a gunshot, and then you hear a series of more gunshots, correct?
Yes.
And you, from where you were, could not see what happened to Kyle at the second incident, correct?
Yes.
Did not see.
I did not see.
And eventually, Kyle comes back in to your vision, correct?
Yes.
What did you observe Kyle doing as he approached? Well, let me ask you this. Where was he first?
Where I first saw him was kind of against a tree line. It was more in front of the Ultimate gas station. And I saw him walking with his gun hanging down and he had his hands up. And then I watched him walk up to a police car and then step away.
Okay.
And then...
Describe what he's doing as he's going up to that police car.
I can't hear anything, but I could tell he was yelling.
Okay.
I don't know what he was yelling.
Where
but,
were his hands?
In the air.
Okay. And you saw him walk up to the police car,
Yes.
You don't hear anything, but does Kyle stay and go up to the car? What's his next movement?
He walks up to the car and very quickly he like jumps back.
Okay, like somebody told him to get back?
Yeah.
Because he walked up there voluntarily, correct?
Yes.
And then he quickly steps back.
Yes.
And he then makes his way back to car source number 2, correct?
Yes.
And he goes to that location, you guys meet up outside, you come down the ladder.
Yes, I come down the ladder. By the time I had got inside the building, he was already sitting in there.
Okay.
So they had to open the doors for him and let him in.
Okay. And you described him on August 25th, the morning of the 26th, I apologize, to Detective Antaramian as sweating like a pig. Do you remember using those words?
Yes.
White as a ghost?
Yes.
And hysterical.
Yes.
He told you he shot somebody?
Yes.
Told you he had to shoot somebody?
Yes.
With self-defense?
Yes.
Hadn't met with a lawyer, correct?
Correct.
Hadn't talked with anybody about his story. He's telling you right that day what happened.
Yes.
And you don't want to take him to the Kenosha Police Department, correct?
Yes.
Why not?
It's impossible.
You can't get to it, correct?
Yeah, you can't.
And if you guys walked up there with guns, you'd be a target, correct?
Yeah.
And you agree to go home to Kyle's residence, and he'll turn himself into the police there.
Yes.
And he did turn himself into the police
Yes.
an hour and a half after you finally saw him at the car source, correct?
About that time, yes.
1:20 a.m. That's what the video shows. You don't dispute that.
No.
And you talk about discussions whether or not he should leave. That was his mother who was making those discussions, correct?
Yes.
Kyle wanted to turn himself in, correct?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
And he did.
Yes, he did.
And eventually you
Good.
were asked to come
Glad
down
that
to the
the
police
attorney's
department, correct?
taking
Yes.
this line.
And when you were asked to come down to the police department, you brought the guns.
No. The police had met us there at the apartment, and then they took them.
Okay. And then you drive then down to the police department
Yes.
with Kyle's 2 sisters.
Yes. No. Yeah. Yeah, I believe so.
And shortly after you get there, that's when that first interview happens with you, correct?
Yes.
And at that point, you are worried about the fact that you had given Kyle the gun, correct?
Yes.
And you talked to your girlfriend, his sister, at the police department and asked about coming up with a story to protect you regarding the guns, correct?
I do not remember that.
If she said it happened, you wouldn't disagree, correct?
I would disagree.
Okay. And Detective Antaramian asking you a question on the morning of the 26th. So when did you first see the gun? You. About when we were getting into the car, when we walked outside the house. Detective Antaramian. Okay. Did you talk to him about it at all? No. I had a lot of stuff on my mind. Do you remember that exchange?
Yes.
Okay. Nothing bad had happened at that point, correct?
Correct.
So what did you have on your mind that was interfering with you saying, hey, Kyle, don't take the gun?
Kind of scared to go down there, not knowing what to expect.
Just, you wanted Kyle to have the gun, correct?
That wasn't really an opinion in my mind at all.
You wanted a gun.
Personally, for myself, yes.
You had no objection or voiced no objection to Kyle, your brother, having the gun, correct?
It wasn't a thought in my mind.
Well, he walks out of the house with an AR-15, and you don't say boo, correct?
I didn't say anything, correct?
And you have the ability to speak.
Yes.
If you wanted to object, you could have said something to Kyle, correct?
Yes, I could have.
And you didn't.
No.
Because you wanted him to have the gun for protection.
Not that reason exactly.
You wanted a gun for protection.
Yes.
Good. Good. I'm glad that Rittenhouse seems to have competent defense.
This is a statement that you made to Detective Antaramian on the morning of the 26th. But that's what I knew of it. Basically, we go down there and we walk up, and it's coincidental. We walk up and there's Sam, and I'm like, oh, Sam, I just met you not long ago or whatever. And he gives Nick keys to the building and showed him where the ladder was, correct?
Yes.
You guys had permission to be there.
Yes.
He wanted you to protect his property.
Yes.
And he wanted protection at the 59th Street address and the 63rd Street address.
Yes.
And once you found out there wasn't any protection at the 63rd Street address, you sent Kyle down there, correct?
Yes.
And initially, Nick was acting like he was in control of everything, correct?
Yes.
And he was leading the people from the West Bend area who you didn't know, like he was even the owner of Car Source, correct?
Yes.
He wasn't, correct?
No.
Vanessa Kitty says, prosecution witness chewed down to dust. Pretty much.
Do you remember telling Detective Antaramian the only person I saw actually help people was Kyle?
Yes.
Because he was, correct?
Yes.
He might not have been a trained EMT, but he was providing first aid.
Yes.
And that big orange box in Exhibit 30 that I showed you, that was the stuff he brought from either his house or his employment, correct?
I'm not too sure where that came from, if I'm being honest.
What if you're not being honest?
Do you remember telling Detective Antaramian the only person I saw actually help people was Kyle?
Yes.
Because he was, correct?
Yes.
He might not have been a trained EMT, but he was providing first aid.
Yes.
And that big orange box in Exhibit 30 that I showed you, that was the stuff he brought from either his house or his employment, correct?
I'm not too sure where that came from, if I'm being honest.
Why is this...
Water bottle, and then
Okay.
poof. Detective Antaramian, what hurt? Did the bottle hit you? You. No. It was actually, I was on the roof, but the wind was blowing towards me, so it was a bunch of just like a tear gas bomb. Just a bunch of smoke in the air. It came towards me, and my eyes started to burn. Do you remember that?
Yes.
So they were throwing gas bombs at you on the roof.
Yes.
There were gas bombs on the ground.
Yes.
And I agree, Pickle. The
No.
videos might be Rittenhouse's best witness.
Do you remember talking to Detective Antaramian about somebody on the roof who was upsetting you because he was taking a laser pointer, not on a gun, but a laser pointer and pointing it at people?
Yes, I do remember.
Okay, that wasn't Kyle, correct? Because he was never on the roof.
Correct.
Now, who was that?
One of the people that came from out of town, he was about in mid-30s, I want to say mid-40s. He was on the...
Is he depicted in Exhibit 30? If you have to walk closer, go ahead.
Correct, DH.
I don't think I see him.
So he's reading from what he told the detectives.
No, I don't believe so.
But it was a laser pointer, and the individual would point to demonstrators, rioters, correct?
Yes.
That upset them
Yes.
because it was pointing them out,
Yes.
and it also upset them because they could have thought it was a weapon.
Yes.
And you told him to stop,
Yes.
and he just kept laughing about it.
Yes.
Well, Pickle 30s and 40s is older than him.
Antaramian, asking you.
And again, I've got
26,
socks that's older
okay,
than that kid.
Anyone have inaudible? Kyle, he disappears out of view. You. Nick somehow finds out that there's nobody there, and there's people trying to break cars. And he tells Kyle and the other dude that he was on the ground with to go over there. So did he tell him this in person or on the phone? Phone. Do you remember that?
It was on the phone.
But you're not sure who called.
Yes, I'm not sure.
Later on in that same interview, you speaking. He was actually on the roof at that point. Nick kept on going up and down, up and down. He called Kyle. Before he called Kyle, he told me, like, there's nobody there. They're trying to set cars on fire. I was like, oh crap, oh crap. And he called Kyle and he tells him, and then Kyle starts running and he bolts for it. Do you remember telling the detective that?
Yes, no, I do.
And you stated you saw him run from the gas station, correct?
Yes.
Could you see the fire extinguisher in his hands?
Yes.
Because you're only, if you're on the roof of the car source number 2, you're like 1 block from 60, not 1 block, less than a half a block from 60th and Sheridan Road, correct?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
You had a clear line of sight directly to the ultimate gas station.
Yes.
Detective Howard, to you on the 26th. What makes Ryan supposed to be with Kyle? Why do you say that? I wouldn't say supposed to, but they were with each other the entire night. Every time Kyle left, so did he. So they were always together.
Yes.
And when they're going out to provide medical attention to people, they're going out with the buddy system. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, that's fair.
And when Kyle would go out and put out fires that were going on, he would go with somebody else, the buddy system, correct?
Yes.
There was a time where he left with the female Joanne Fiedler with the white helmet and went and put out a fire by the church. Do you remember that?
I believe so.
And you stated, so I figured they wanted to team up and go out and help people,
Yes.
telling the detective. This is Detective Antaramian questioning you on the 26th, asking you if you remember this. Okay, so then at some point you guys, I guess, and I'm not trying to make you look worse, but I want to make sure I'm factually accurate here. I mean, the fact that he buys this sling for his gun, it's likely he's going out to take it with him that night. Well, the intent was to buy a sling for me. Do you remember that exchange?
I do not.
But even Detective Antaramian questioned you about the sling and the timing of it, correct?
Yes.
And how hard was it to attach those slings?
I don't really recall.
Do you remember the detectives wanting your telephone?
My phone?
Yeah.
No, I don't believe so.
Didn't they talk to you? And I'm reading from Detective Howard at that same interview. So we're just going to apply for a search warrant. But absolutely, as it's laid out in that form, you have the right to refuse. Dominic Black. Okay, so I'm not understanding as far as what I believe. I believe I'm going to be here for a while. Okay? And I have not talked to the authorities yet, so I don't know. Do you remember the discussion about that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and they wanted to download your phone, correct?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
And eventually,
Jason
you said,
Stewart
"Fine,
says,
you
"Don't
can
forget,
download my
everything
phone, I don't
Kyle
have anything
did
to
and the
hide."
help he gave
Yes.
makes him enemy number 1 of the left. Absolutely right, because the left doesn't want us to be self-reliant for anything. We must be reliant on the government. By the way, mods, if anybody goes out there and starts showing their ass, well, remember, I'm okay with disagreement. I'm okay if someone thinks Kyle should fry.
Yes.
Okay.
Just make sure that people are not
you
being
were already
jerks
under arrest.
about
And the
anything,
detective-
pro, con, or middle of the road. Just
Both detectives interviewed you that night.
disagreement's fine,
Yes.
discussion is
And
fine.
When you
Being a
were
jackass
in
ain't.
that
Standard-
interview,
my standard
as it was
rules
wrapping
apply.
up, they told you to have your lawyer, who was a different lawyer than Mr. Cotton at the time, reach out to Mr. Binger. He needed to talk to him about working something out.
Yes.
Okay, and from that day, they wanted you as a witness, correct?
I wouldn't necessarily say from that day, no.
Okay. Your trial on your charges was set back in September, correct?
I don't exactly recall.
Let me ask it this way, not trying to trip you up on dates. Your trial on these charges, which Mr. Binger is prosecuting you for, was before today,
Yes.
okay? About a month and a half ago?
Yes.
Okay. And you, your lawyer, and Mr. Binger walked into this courtroom and asked that the matter be set over until January of 2022,
Yes.
after you testified here today, correct?
Yes.
Dun, dun, dun! So much for your credibility. So basically, all your testimony today is in the hopes of saving your own ass. Ta-tump, ta-tump. That's the sound of you throwing Kyle under the bus.
Before August 25th, 2020, that gun that Kyle Rittenhouse possessed on the night in question had never left the state of Wisconsin, correct?
Correct.
And you guys had the gun and you took it to Illinois so he could turn himself into the police.
Yes.
Okay. And you and Kyle did the taking off graffiti, correct?
Yes.
And that was in the late morning, right around lunchtime of the 25th, correct?
Correct.
And in that photograph is you, your stepfather, and your girlfriend, Mackenzie, correct?
Which photograph?
The photograph of this photograph right here.
My stepfather isn't in that picture.
He's not in that one?
No, it'd be my brother, and then Kyle and Mackenzie.
Okay, so you are where?
That might have been when I left to go get like the sandpaper.
Okay. And Kyle's wearing the olive green shirt with his hat turned backwards?
Yes.
And who's that standing next to him?
Mackenzie?
Okay. And you guys had spent the night before at your dad's house, correct?
I'm not aware of where he slept. I don't really remember.
Could have slept at your house?
He could have.
Okay. And Mackenzie slept at your house that night?
I'm not aware. I can't remember.
Do you remember watching live streams of the riots?
No, I do not.
Did your dad talk to you about the riots and that's the reason he got the guns out?
He did previously that night, yes.
Do you remember him talking to you as you told the detectives that there was a plan to board up the windows if the rioters came?
Yes.
Okay. So all that was going on, you're aware of it?
Yes.
And when you guys are target shooting up north, there was nothing strange about that, correct?
No.
Kyle handled the gun appropriately,
Yes.
and he shot at those small little, you're saying clay pigeons?
Yes.
About 4 inches in diameter?
Yep.
You shot at the same things?
Yes.
Nothing out of the ordinary?
No.
I have nothing further, sir. Thank you.
Redirect.
I want to pick up where that left off there. It sounds like there was a plan with your father to have the guns available, board up windows to protect the house that you live in. Is that right?
Yes.
But you decided on the night of the 25th to leave home and go downtown to protect Car Source. Is that right?
Yes.
Why didn't you stay home? Protect your house.
The riots had been going on for a while. The house had been ready to be boarded up. All the guns have been out for, I want to say, ever since the riots started, and nothing happened. I felt that the house would be safe.
The timing of all this, if I understand you correctly, is on Tuesday afternoon, late afternoon, 4 o'clock or so about, is when you and the defendant take the guns from your house and come downtown.
Yes.
Is that about right?
Yes.
You were somehow aware of stuff that had happened on Monday night and on Sunday night, right?
Yes.
That's part of the reason why you went downtown.
Yes.
But you decided at 4 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon there was no danger to your house that night?
I mean, I kind of figured, it's not just me that would be staying at the house. I have a lot of brothers that live there. It wasn't entirely my responsibility to make sure that the house was safe. I felt that it was safe. Nobody was going to harm the house. Nothing in the area had happened.
Okay. On this particular evening, when you're at the Car Source at 59th and you're up on the roof, where was Nick Smith during that evening?
He was up and down. So he was on the ground, he was on the roof, he was inside the building.
Did he ever have a gun that night?
I
Jason,
believe
the
so.
prosecutor is
To the
asking
best of my
questions
memory,
again.
I think he did.
Do you remember
Assistant
if he had it the whole
DA
evening or just a short
Binger.
period of time?
I don't remember.
Is it fair to say that Nick Smith stayed at that location physically the whole night?
Yes.
And you did too?
Yes.
You've been asked by me, you've been asked by Attorney Richards, several variations of the same question, and I don't know that I think we've done some...
Don't comment on the witness's answer.
Who told the defendant to go to 63rd Street Car Source?
I'm not 100% certain.
At any point that evening, did you personally receive information from any other person that there were problems at the 63rd Street Car Source?
The only person I figured that out from was Nick Smith.
Do you know where he got that information?
I do not.
To your knowledge, did he physically ever go down to 63rd Street after you got to 59th, when you finally got all set up? Did he ever leave later in the evening to go check and see what was happening at 63rd Street Car Source in person?
No.
You said at some point in the evening someone up on the roof was using a laser pointer to aim at the crowd. Is that right?
Yes.
Oh, that was bullcrap. I read that lip.
So we're talking about something like this, shining it on a person. Is that right?
Yes, but a lot bigger.
Okay. Was it your understanding that the people who had this pointed at him felt like that was a gun
Yes.
pointed at him? You're telling us that it wasn't actually a gun, but the people on the ground thought it was.
Yes.
And you were upset by that.
Yes.
Why?
Because he shouldn't be doing that. There's no reason for it. And it's drawing attention towards us.
Did you feel that it wasn't appropriate for anyone on the roof or on the ground to be pointing a gun at anyone?
No, I didn't really feel like that was necessary at all.
Maybe I misstated my question. Let me just make sure I'm clear on that. Would you agree with me that it was not appropriate for the members in your group to be pointing their guns at people?
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned earlier, when I was asking you questions, that someone was throwing rocks. You said in response to Mr. Richards' questions that someone was throwing some sort of water bottle or gas bomb up on the roof. Is that right?
Yes.
When these folks were doing these things to you and the other members of your group, Did you point a gun at anyone?
No.
Did you fire at anyone?
No.
Why not?
Because there's no need to. I mean,
Did you feel that by these people throwing rocks at you or throwing a gas bomb at you, that you were in danger?
Pain, yes, but not danger. I knew it wasn't going to kill me.
So you felt like it wasn't enough to use deadly force?
Correct.
You were asked some questions about the discussions that you and I have had during the lead up to this case. Have I ever put any words in your mouth?
No.
What was the number one rule that I told you that I wanted from you when you testified?
Nothing but the truth.
Final question I have for you. Those slings, you were asked about how hard those slings were to attach to your body, and I forget, what did you say about that?
I don't truly remember.
Once they were attached to your body, did they hold that gun sort of dangling in front of you?
Yes.
Could we show that photograph of them? I think it's number 30, the one you just used. Okay. Yeah, I'll hold it. That's okay. I'm going to show you, Mr. May I approach on it? I've got this photograph that you've already seen. It's exhibit number 30, and it's showing you and the other individuals at the 63rd Street car source. Is that right?
Yes.
Are you wearing the sling in that photograph?
Yes, it appears.
And is that sling holding that gun in the front portion of your body?
Yes.
Does the defendant have his sling on with his gun being held similar to you?
Yes.
Was that sling strong enough to hold the weight of that gun?
Yes.
Was that sling strong enough so that if someone tried to pull that gun away, the gun would be held to your body?
Yes.
I have nothing further.
See, right there, he's trying to set up that Kyle did not have to shoot Rosenbaum or Huber for trying to take away the firearm. However, courts have ruled many times in the past that someone trying to take your firearm from you is justification for lethal force.
Please don't talk about the case during the break.
So while I was yapping, the judge said that they're going to take a quick break. Talk amongst yourselves. I will be right back. I have to go take a quick break, so I'll be right back. 3 minutes, tops. Well, maybe 5. Woo, I'm back. Hey, thanks, Domo Arigato Robato, for the super chat, buddy. You certainly didn't have to do that. See you later to those who are leaving. Welcome to stick around, those who want to stick around till we see this come back on. I know that I'm going to try tomorrow to stream as much of this as I can. There's a couple doctor's appointments and whatnot in between there, so I'm only going to be able to do so much, but we'll see. I want to find out what time this is starting in the morning and then start then. I think this has been interesting so far. The prosecutor's definitely trying to set up premeditation like you're saying, Squib. I don't know. Are you even still here, Squib? I don't know. Is Squib still with us?
I told you I'm at
there
work.
You are. Oh, my bad. Yeah, Squibby's at work. So yes, I think he had a. I think you had a great point. How long is this break going to be?
My job doesn't offer help.
Or is this done for the day? Do we know? I didn't catch because I was yapping.
Unfortunately, I had so much noise around me that I really couldn't hear too much. So that's the downside to trying to do this from work. That, and it seems like when I'm, they're saying, man, nobody's live right now. Nothing's going on. And then if I try to jump onto a show, everybody wants to follow me around, or every place I go to where there shouldn't be somebody, there's somebody there.
Good morning, still.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was earlier today. Where's the one that was just on, damn it? Oh, this is what was just on. Oh, this is live now. From Yahoo Finance. This is outside. Oh, no, that's starting outside the courtroom. Damn it, this is live now. Trying to go back and see if I can find something that says when they're coming back. Yeah, this is what we were just watching.
After you got to 59th, when you finally got... And it's showing you and the other individuals at the 63rd Street car source, is that right?
Yes.
Are you wearing the sling in that photograph?
Yes, it appears.
And is that sling holding that gun in the front portion
Jacob
of your
S.
body?
says, guess this. How many people think that this trial would take more than a couple of
Does the
weeks?
defendant have his
I'd be
sling
surprised
on,
if it takes
his
that
gun
long.
being held similar to you?
Unless the prosecution
Was that
really
sling
brings
strong
something
enough to hold
fantastic
the
out
weight
of his
that
ass.
gun?
Yes.
Was that sling strong
Ball
enough so
Gang
that if
puts
someone
forth the
tried to
theory
pull
that
gun
it's
away,
funny.
the
It
gun would
doesn't
be
matter
held to your
how
body?
good of an argument the defense
Yes.
puts up. All it's
I've
going to
never
take
heard
is a mass protest outside the court,
Or recross, rather.
I would move Exhibit 30 into
and they're going to cave and lock him up like they did Chauvin.
Received. You may step down, sir. Let's take a break. Let's aim for about 20 after. Please don't talk about the case during the break.
So a few more minutes and they'll be back. Is it the break could be at 20 after? It's quarter after now. So good. They'll be coming back. Let me go through and see if I can catch up to the chat.
Something I'd like to note.
Go ahead.
This guy says he's his friend. They were like brothers. They ain't
Yes.
friends no more.
Yeah, no
For
shit.
damn sure. I'm gonna throw you under the bus to save my ass. With friends like that, who needs friends?
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, he's facing charges because he screwed up. They're both going to be, even if Kyle, is found not guilty of murder, he's found guilty of self-defense. They're both still going to be facing other charges. So that's an inevitability. but he was promised something, and he's throwing his friend under the bus to save his own ass. They both made poor choices. We've never disagreed on that. But the whole thing about, is this murder or not? It's obviously not murder. That's been the thing that we've been talking about. And some people want to deflect and use all of these secondary crimes or potential secondary crimes, or use the situation and deflect.
Well, he shouldn't have been there to begin with.
Yeah, and that's never been. I mean, we touched on it some. We've talked about it some. But it's not relevant to this. Now, if there was a trespassing, or being out after curfew or underage being there, okay, then I could see us going, yeah, he shouldn't have been there, or maybe he exercised poor judgment. But that hasn't been what it's about. And I think the prosecutor is trying to do that to establish motive, the way some people that maybe leave comments again and again and again are trying to establish their argument, and they're failing to see that they're comparing apples to oranges.
Yep.
And I'm kind of hoping that the prosecution's argument falls apart, because it's seen as an apples to oranges comparison, and they're really deflecting instead of addressing the true nature of the reason that they're having this trial.
Yeah. The thing that a lot of people just seem unable to grasp is that, A, whether he should have been there or not is completely, totally, utterly, and absolutely irrelevant to the question of whether or not his use of force was justified. The fact of whether he should have had that rifle or not is completely, totally, and utterly unrelated to the fact of whether or not his use of force was justified. Either the use of force was justified or it was not. Anything else is a separate issue, and they don't seem to grasp that. They seem to want to convict this kid and throw him in prison for life because he committed the misdemeanor crime of having a weapon when he shouldn't have. And even that, statutorily, is pretty vague under Wisconsin law. So, and courts have ruled that felons in possession of a firearm do not have their rights of self-defense negated simply because they illegally possess the firearm. So, in this case, none of that shit applies. None of that shit is relevant. The only things that are relevant was Kyle innocent? Did he have a duty to retreat? Was the force he used in proportion to the force used against him? Was it reasonable? And was he in imminent danger? I would say that all 5 of those things are met in every single instance that Kyle was involved in shooting somebody or shooting at somebody.
And let's go back to his comparison there. Once again, apples to oranges. Of the people that were throwing rocks earlier, well, why didn't you shoot them? Okay, they were stationary throwing rocks, and we could move away, and they didn't follow us. Okay, these people were actively following him, actively threatening him, had something other than rocks, had a freaking skateboard and a gun. It's an apples to oranges comparison, and he's trying to say, well, if these people were standing there throwing rocks at you and you simply ran away, then why didn't you do that before? He did try to run away, and somebody put a Glock in his face.
But,
so it's apples to oranges.
Check this out. Wisconsin's a stand your ground state. He has no duty to retreat anyway, but he was trying to. He was doing more than he was legally required to do to avoid shooting these fools. They forced him to do it. Ohio Wolverine says the media is trying to spin this as a mass shooting, white nationalist planned attack. Yeah, most likely. And that's probably what this politically motivated Geraldo's little brother looking prosecutor is trying to do. Frickin' turd bucket. There was one other comment up there I wanted to talk about. I think it was Ohio Wolverine, too. It said the prosecution's smoking gun is the never-before-seen FBI drone footage that was leaked to the public. Let's see, where else? There was something else he said. With friends like the last witness who needs enemies, defense ate the prosecutor's lunch and destroyed the witness. Yeah, I think so. Vanessa Kitty says, rocks, firebombs, several rioters chasing you down the street, skateboard smashed on your head. And still, Kyle only fired his firearm at the few who almost got to him to beat him to death. Absolutely right. Under those circumstances, a lot of people would have just sprayed. He didn't. he shot the threats. Even if you go back and look at the live stream I did where we kind of dissected this video frame by frame and bit by bit, during the incident with Grosskreutz, there was a time when he had the rifle pointed at him. Grosskreutz started backing up, put his hands up. Kyle lowered the muzzle of the rifle and only brought it back up when Grosskreutz brought his pistol to bear on Kyle. Kyle happened to be faster on the trigger. That's it. It's the only reason he's alive. He was faster on the trigger than Grosskreutz because Grosskreutz was trying to kill him. Captain, call him Slot Machine now because he's the one-armed bandit. Vanessa Kitty says, so far they've shown that Kyle was under threat by rocks, gas bombs, and by fire, and he went down the streets rendering what first aid he could do. Ohio Wolverine asked, did you guys see the photos of the defense showed in the opening of Rosenberg carrying a chain? I saw a glimpse of that. I missed a lot of the opening statements this morning, unfortunately. I wish I'd been able to live stream it, but I had to take the wife to a doctor's appointment, so I couldn't even watch it. Jacob S. says, I wish I could have seen their opening arguments and had done some homework on this first. Good news is they're available. Court TV has it as a video, as does Yahoo Finance. So you can go back and watch that later this evening. I plan to. So yeah, this whole thing is just, to me, it's interesting. I like stuff like this. Not that I like that it happened, but I find the process, the courtroom drama, interesting. Particularly because this isn't made up. This is real, right? Plus, it has national impact on self-defense, and it's going to be interesting to see how the public reacts if they don't get the verdict they want, which let me back that up, because I know what's going to happen if conservatives don't get the verdict that we want to have happen here, that so clearly needs to happen. Here's a hint: nothing will burn down. But if the antis, if the liberals, if the Antifa communist Marxist pieces of garbage don't get the verdict they want, I suspect there's going to be some smoke rising in the air. Although it is getting to be a little bit colder weather, maybe that'll put a damper on some of that.
Something else I'd like to point out that they were talking about is that they were trying to say that he was misrepresenting himself as an EMT when he is not. Now, he might have said something that was either misinterpreted, or he was running his mouth, he's a kid, he's bragging, or he doesn't have a short way to say, I have some training, I'm going that direction, instead he just shortens it to that and good enough. Or like I said, he was bragging or whatever. Now they're trying to discredit him. That too is irrelevant. They're trying to say, well, look at him. He thinks he's some sort of EMT going down there. He should have never been down there to render assistance because he's not certified. He's not qualified. Yet he did render assistance. And there are Good Samaritan laws that allow you to do that sort of thing without getting sued. And these lawyers know better. And to make that an issue, once again, trying to discredit, saying, see, no reason to be down there other than he wanted to hunt and kill people with this deadly weapon. And the whole sling thing, I can see where they're going with the whole, well, if they couldn't rip it off his body, he shouldn't have. But that was another, they're just stretching. But they definitely didn't lead with their best witness. I think they've got a couple cards up their sleeve. I think that they put this idiot out there just to dip their toe in the water and see how things are going to go.
Well, the problem is John Q public, a lot of them think like that too. You know, I had a commenter on one of my videos that asked me, what training did Kyle have to justify him being out there with an AR-15? Well, first off, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Where does that mention training? Nowhere. You don't need training. You aren't required to have training to go anywhere with anything as firearm related. You don't. There's no justification. That's what a right is. Just as all those people had a right to peaceably assemble to petition the government for redress of their grievances, Kyle had a right to keep and bear arms to defend himself. Period. He had just as much right to be there as they did. He had just as much right to be armed as they did. Where you talk about rights and who didn't have a right, was Rosenbaum didn't have a right to start setting things on fire and threaten to kill Kyle if he ever got him alone. Rosenbaum didn't have the right to chase the kid across the parking lot and throwing shit at him. Rosenbaum didn't have the right to, when he got within range, reach for the kid's weapon and attempt to take it from him. At that point, he was using a deadly force attack against Kyle. Kyle, at that point, had every right to put little holes in him. And he did. He exercised that right to preserve his own life. He then fled. When he fell, dropkick guy didn't have the right to kick him in the head. Kyle did have the right to exercise his Second Amendment right and use force in defense of himself. He missed the guy, but he had every right to kill him, because being kicked in the head while you are down with a shod foot has been upheld over and over again in many courts to be a deadly force attack. Anthony Huber did not have the right to swing and hit Kyle in the back of the head with his skateboard. Anthony Huber did not have the right to grab Kyle's rifle and attempt to take it from him. That, coupled with the skateboard, are both deadly force attacks. Kyle did have the right to defend himself and end Anthony Huber's life. Gage Grosskreutz did not have the right to point that pistol at Kyle. Kyle did have the right to use force in defense of himself, because having a pistol pointed at you is a deadly force attack. And then he disarmed Grosskreutz. So I have no sympathy for any of these people involved, because their choices led to their demise and or maiming. Period.
Yeah, but he also surrendered his right to keep and bear arms when he became a felon.
I think so, yes.
Voluntarily became a felon? So really, that should be open and shut. It should be like, oh, let's see, felon, not felon. Yeah, we got a little bit of gray area in here, but I'd say we're even. Case closed. Judge should just stamp the gavel and off they go. You're lucky you're not dead and you're not back in jail. You're lucky you're not facing a bunch of charges. Now get the hell out of my courtroom. But that's not the way it works. That's the way it should work, but that's not the way it does work.
Yeah, unfortunately. Just back up again. I don't know if it is or not. Looks like they may be coming back in. Or no. Nope, not yet. Why are they cutting the broadcast off when they leave for breaks? That's just aggravating, man. So I got to keep checking back. I would very much like to watch this, continue watching this. Is Kyle back in custody? He was leaving with the sheriff there.
Giddings, his girlfriend.
No, that's... Let me go over to Court TV's website.
In all the years...
They're not. I'll be sitting here trying to find this, folks, so that we can watch this when it comes back. Let me click on the Yahoo Finance channel and see if... Well, they are not. No, let's go back to where it was.
For anyone who's tortured by gum disease or tooth decay. This solution is so simple and so incredibly powerful that
Not yet. They have not come back yet. Yeah, I don't care about the opening arguments. I want the continuing ongoing.
Time to go into right now, but there will be no photographs or motion or video of any kind during the testimony of the next witness. Any question?
No photographs or video of the next witness? Well, what the hell? Now I wonder why they're not allowing video or photographs or even audio, apparently, of this next witness. That is not cool. What's so super secret that they couldn't do that? Let me see if there's anybody running audio of this.
Of the sitting against Kyle Rittenhouse, and the appearances are as before. And
this isn't live, or is it? No, that's... Yeah, that's disappointing that they're taking this. Well, I don't know. I don't know how long this testimony is going to be. It has to be because the next witness is a minor. That would be my guess. So who knows how long this testimony is going to be. I'm not going to sit here for a bunch of silence, and I'm not going to make you guys do that. Given what time it is, it'll probably be about they'll probably be about done after this witness too. So I'm going to sign off here and thank you guys for watching this with me. Thanks Squib for hanging out and chiming in when you could. I'm going to try to, as I said, stream some more of this tomorrow as much as I can. Barring this, I'm going to actually hope to find the 2A case that's before SCOTUS, see if I can stream those oral arguments, and we'll see where that goes. But thanks, and I'll talk to you guys later, man. You guys all have a good one. Be safe.